Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Conversational Pace. We are bringing you the Ultra Mont Blanc Carbon today. This is it the second generation or the third generation of Mont Blanc? Because
Oh
like
my gosh.
the Boa, I feel like is kind of like a 0.5, and then the Mont Blanc Carbon is like the update to the Mont Blanc because they're still making the Mont Blanc Boa, and this is supposed to replace the Mont Blanc, but it's like a totally different shoe, which we'll dive into. So
Yeah, Ultra
uh,
likes to make fractional versions of shoes. They do a lot of 1.5s and 2.5 stuff like that.
Yeah, so while this is technically the third shoe in the Mont Blanc series, I really see it as like the second generation of the Mont Blanc series. So this is the Ultra Mont Blanc Carbon. We got these shoes from Ultra and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like a shoe or not, because we want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. No one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. This shoe, I mean, we just gotta like rip the band-aid off, dude. This shoe is expensive. This shoe is $260. And normally in the stats, I try like to leave opinions out of it, but I listened to the Running Warehouse podcast called Mr. Rubio used to run. Joe's an awesome guy. I think he knows more about shoes than anyone I've ever met. But he brought up one of my favorite like value propositions for shoes. And he's like, I don't understand how a company can justify just charging the same price as like say Nike or Adidas does if they're not bringing something better to the table.
Differentiation.
Like if you want to get your way into the market, you need to be as good or better, but be cheaper because you are not the like household brand name. So whether we'll dive into whether this is as good or better if it brings new to the table, but I thought that was just like an interesting way to break down the price of, any incoming footwear product. But the shoe is $260. My pair is a US size 10. It came in at 9.5 ounces or 270 grams. The stack height is 29 millimeters in the forefoot, 29 millimeters in the heel for a 0 millimeter drop. Doing that math used to be kind of redundant in Ultra, but they are now creating some non-zero drop shoes. So this one is true to the old school Ultra brand, being zero drop. The materials of the shoe, the upper is interesting. I was trying to figure out like the verbiage to describe the front half. So there's like the forefoot, midfoot half, and then there's like the second half of the midfoot and the heel cup are two different materials. So the red half is I called it like a very thin mesh, but it was a very tight knit. What do you think?
Agree.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's a thin mesh, but it's a tight knit. There is a medium protective toe bumper with a little bit of additional plastic overlay, but that's pretty much it. There is kind of a seam that you can see that there is a stitch, but it's kind of taped off and protected on both sides. That then goes into almost more like a ripstop nylon type material. It's translucent. You can like pretty much see through it. It has no stretch at all. There is some softer fabric like underlay to create a bit of a skeleton type cage around the midfoot to give it some shape. That goes all the way into the heel cup, which I would say is one of the parts of the upper that changed the most from the previous two Mont Blancs. This heel cup gets a little bit more traditional shape. It's got some more rigidity to it. It doesn't have any plastic in it, but it does have quite a bit more stiffness to it. They added more foam around the inside of, the heel cup and around the ankle. The one thing that we've been talking about too is like, it's still not very deep.
The
Whether
depth
it's
is not deep.
The depth is not deep in this heel cup. So if you're the runner that puts in a custom orthotic that adds some height, I would expect some heel slippage in this shoe. The depth is not deep for this heel cup. Still incorporated a Velcro gator tab on the back. Tongue is mostly no padding. There's no padding at the bottom or the top of the tongue, but there is just a little bit right in the middle to help probably just protect your foot from any potential lace bite type issues. But it's a pretty stripped down minimal upper. There's not a whole lot going on up there because this is supposed to be Altra's race shoe after all. The midsole is where things actually get pretty exciting. There's some there's some buzzwords on here. We got like Carbitex, there's Ego Pro, got Vibram on the side. But anyways, the midsole foam that what we see is not the midsole foam that your foot sits on top of. So this is a classic like Ego Pro. No, I got it backwards. The Ego Max is the carrier foam. And then right underfoot is a big chunk of Ego Pro. If you lift up the insole, you can actually see it because the shoe has no strobel board, which we'll dive into that when we break down, the feel and everything. But the construction is similar to the Nike Zagama that has the EVA carrier, but then the Zoom X core in the middle. And what Ego Pro is Altra's new proprietary super foam. So I think it's like a PIBA plastic-based super foam that is like extremely bouncy, extremely lightweight, very high cushion, checks all the super foam boxes.
Can you explain that carrier core difference and why there would be different materials in each of those scenarios?
So there's a couple reasons why they would opt for a core. So one is to stabilize the super foam a little bit, because if we just go like pure Ego Pro on this shoe, the shoe's probably wildly unstable and way too bouncy for the trail. So adding a layer of EVA around it it tones it down a little bit. It takes away some of that initial sharpness and like wildness from it. It's kind of like decanting a wine. If we're gonna get back, into the wine analogies, like it almost lets it open up and be a little bit smoother. The other big pro of wrapping the foam like a super foam in a carrier like this is a lot of those super foams, because they're so low density, they're pretty fragile. They're just easy to poke holes in. So this is just going to protect it. There's also, I don't know, the jury's still out on this, but it can help with durability because these super foams are so soft that, while there's a lot of compression going this way, when it's just like naked super foam, there's a lot of compression going outward as well. So when we encase the foam in something firmer, most of that energy just goes purely up and down, doesn't squish the foam out. So it takes a little bit longer for the super foam to lose its, its properties. And in the trails, you don't need like that 100% bounce factor, because then things can get a little wild. So yeah, that's kind of why they did that. That's not all for this midsole though. Also, what is in here, I mean, hence the name Mont Blanc Carbon. There is a carbon plate, but it's different than any carbon plate we've kind of run in recently. This is the Carbitex brand carbon plate that is, what were we calling it? Monoflex? Monoflex or Uni Stiff, maybe. I don't know if that's what they're calling it. We're making this up. But basically what it is the carbon fiber weave is in such a way where the shoe flexes in one way, but is stiff the other way.
I'm trying to press down right now.
Yes. And it's significant. I mean, I got to play with the carbon plate at the running event back in November at Ultra's booth, and like very much flexible one direction, stiff the other. Is that the future of like trail super shoes? Maybe, maybe not. We'll dive into that, but that's what is in this shoe. And then moving on to the outsole, we have our classic. This is probably what is the least changed from the Mont Blanc series. The lugs in the forefoot actually did get a little bit bigger. This was just like a tasteful upgrade, but it's Vibram, Mega Grip rubber, light base. I think we're probably looking 3.5 to 4 millimeter lugs. I couldn't find the actual number, but it's there, and it's in kind of like a classic Ultra foot shape fashion. That's the materials for the shoe. let's get into our thoughts. Finn, how much running did you get to do in this one?
68.5 miles on this shoe over 9 runs and about 10 and a quarter total hours time on feet, all on trail. And yeah, I guess just adding a little bit more to what you said there, just for context. I mean, we get to tell our kids and our grandkids that we grew up at the dawn of the trail super shoe era. Like we existed at the inception of market creation. This is what a time to be alive. This is incredible. And we're gonna find out, like, is it just a glorified rock plate? Are there actual mechanical efficiencies that you get on trail? Like, I'm stoked for this conversation.
Yeah, it's just we're in the buzzword Wild West right now.
So, but I, yeah, very, very excited about this review. And also, I think obviously this is the only zero drop carbon plated shoe on the market.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like an advantage for Ultra is that they're
So
in a
it'll be a differentiation factor right there.
yep, that's one of the differentiation factors. They're in a kind of a class of their own with a zero drop super foamed trail shoe. But I got in 97 miles, right under 15 hours of total runtime and 15,700 feet of climbing. The reason I'm like so exact on these numbers is because I was looking at some of the other ones and I just thought this was fascinating. Of course, it's like your training's always different, but my training's been pretty similar for the last like 6 weeks. I ran the same mileage in the on Cloud Surfer Trail, and in the on, I climbed 1,000 feet less, but the testing time was almost an hour more than the Ultra. So, like, overall, I climbed more in these shoes
Mm.
in less time. My average minutes per mile was like significantly faster in this shoe on the same trails under like the similar workload. And I thought that was just kind of interesting.
Any other conclusions you can draw from that or hypotheses for why that was the case?
I mean, it's either that this shoe helps me run faster or I am that much fitter than when we tested the shoe.
That is going to be something we have to contend with in future, like, shoe review testing periods. Like, how fit or unfit were we during the time frame, and how much does that influence sort of our takeaways
Yeah,
from?
100%. Um, I think it's a little bit of both. Um, so, I did a pretty wide variety of running in the shoe. My longest run was 20 miles with like just under 4,000 feet of climbing. I did a handful of faster workouts, some up tempo trail stuff. I even took this shoe out on the roads. I probably got like 20 miles of road running in it just to see what the cushioning like purely felt like on like an even hard surface. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess going from top to bottom,
Yep.
I thought this I thought this upper is I feel like this upper is about as good as it needs to be. Like it's nice and lightweight. I thought the breathability was fine. I noticed that the tighter knit mesh up front, it didn't hold a lot of moisture, but it also kept a lot of fine dirt and debris out. So like those are all like really nice pluses. I like the non-stretch material in the second half. I felt like because of that, when I was running down steeper stuff, it really locked my foot down well.
Yep.
Um, two minor gripes for me was uh, the tongue would slide down about a half an inch at the beginning of every run. Like within the first 10 minutes, the tongue would slide down, but then it would settle. And I actually like would never even think about it until the end of the run. So it just looked worse than it actually felt. Like I'll put up a picture, but um, I don't know, just a little annoying. It would be nice if the tongue just didn't move, but it does, and that's just
Yep.
probably due to there being no fabric or no foam at the bottom. So then it just like folds on itself just a little bit. Um, I also just don't love the whole like rail of like thick piping around the top. Um,
It is
like
thick. It's truly a bumper.
yeah, like fold the foam over and sew it in somewhere else. There's a million other heel cups out there that do that just fine. You don't need to do like weird like this is like like when you're in kindergarten and it's almost Christmas time and you're making ornaments in class and you're using pipe cleaners to make like little ornaments. Like that's what this feels like. And I don't understand why this is considered like a premium material on a $260 shoe. All it does is like crease and like it just like does that
Yep.
on my foot. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes when I'm like running and my ankle's like actually getting some good movement, it like clicks over and it's annoying. Like I never got any blisters, but I just think it could be better.
Yeah. Okay. On my end, couple thoughts. First, and this is probably a point of contention for some people. I think it's a pretty standard roomy toe box up in the front, which I feel like the trade-off there is it's a non-performance oriented toe box in an intended high performance oriented shoe. I'm fine with that. That worked for me. I liked that. That might be an issue for some people. Overall, pretty comfortable upper. The laces on these run super long. I wish they had put a lace garage at the top of the shoe. We've had lace garages in the last like 3 or 4 shoes we've reviewed. I've come to really appreciate it, even in like non-quick lace type shoes. I think it could use a lace garage. You talked about like the heel cup. Yeah, like lockdown heel retention was still, it was better than the first Mont Blanc, which I had a chance to review. Shout out Jimmy Elam. I used to be roommates with him and he would give me a lot of ultras back in the day. So I had a chance to wear that. The BOA one, great shoe. Heel lockdown, and that was a huge issue. They fixed it to some extent. I still think it comes up too short on the heel. I would actually go as far to say that the feeling of shallowness in the heel of a shoe is worse to me than like the bunching of toes up at the forefront of a shoe. Like I hate the shallowness feeling more.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the other cool thing was like I did experience a fair bit of like creasing of the material towards the forefoot, but again, and this is like a credit to the material they used. The material is so like soft and non-abrasive that the creasing didn't create any hot spots or just like general comfortability issues on the top of the forefoot. So
Yeah.
another pro for me.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this forefoot material is very comfortable and I really like it. I don't think there's anything to change about like the forefoot material choices. That was another, you brought up a good point about the width of the forefoot and the toe box and how like like I don't feel very nimble and agile in a forefoot that's this wide because I would say this is like maybe slightly above average with forefoot, square toe box. Midfoot and heel though, very normal width.
Yes.
Like on the narrower side for Ultra,
Yep.
which is probably why I was able to enjoy it so much.
Mm.
But like anything on like single track that's 50K pace, like race pace or faster for me, I couldn't do it in this shoe because my forefoot just moves too much. But I would say it's did better though than like the Topo Mountain Racer that we just did. This one locked me down a little bit better. So, you know, like 50-mile, 100K race pace and slower, I felt totally fine from a security standpoint in this shoe. What did what did you think of this fancy schmancy midsole plate combination going on here?
I mean, I think I'll start with the overall feel, which you actually first texted me about saying, dude, this is awesome. And like, I think I, I replied back, I was like, huh, yep, freaking awesome. Like it was sick. Great. Like the underfoot feel in the shoe is fantastic. I think I'm a big instant fan of this Ego Max foam. Um, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about the plate. I'll be curious to kind of see where you stand as well. I was skeptical going in. I think you had kind of led me in the direction of like, I don't know if like plates make sense in a trail context, or at least not the way they're marketed in terms of like from like a mechanical efficiency standpoint. I don't think that that's the value prop of this plate. I think the value prop of this plate is that it really is great at like dealing with adaptability in terrain. There's flexibility involved and it flexes in the right direction. Monoflex is kind of as you're towing off in stride. I really liked that. Um, and then also, I think another benefit is that um, if you do take sort of like the rock plate view benefit, like it takes up less midsole to get just as much protection and you're kind of net cutting weight in the process. So the shoe kind of becomes lighter. I like that value prop as well. Um, so yeah, like there is a trade-off, right? Like you're not getting the mechanical efficiency that most carbon plated shoes are marketed for, like that sort of efficiency, but you are getting like this improved ability if you're going fast to move pretty well downhill or over technical terrain, or if you're doing like a longer, slower duration effort. It also makes sense to have it because you're getting that protection, added protection, or same protection at a lower weight cost. So that
Yeah.
was interesting to me.
Yeah, that's kind of where I land on this Carbotex plate, where it's like, it's a really expensive rock plate, but this is also supposed to be the like no holds bar like type shoe where they wanted to throw, everything at it. So yeah, it's the thinnest, most efficient rock plate you can put in a shoe. And it doesn't get in the way of your natural like foot movements, which really makes sense for a company like Ultra. Like when I'm hiking in this shoe, I can bend it no problem. When I hike in the Nike Ultra Fly, the shoe fights me because it can't do this that well. And that is to me one of the huge benefits of this monoflex plate. Um, the huge con, though, is whether it's actually worth it to spend that much extra money for like another name brand proprietary technology type piece versus just adding a little bit of thickness in a plastic or a fiberglass and then lowering the end price that the
Mm.
consumer has to pay because it costs a lot of money to throw that in here. And I don't know. It's cool, but it's really hard to justify that kind of price. And yeah, that's where I keep like I was so torn during every single run because I was like, "Holy shit, this Ego Pro foam underfoot is so fun. This is like the most fun feeling ultra shoe I've ever worn, and this is one of the most fun feeling trail shoes I've ever worn from like a midsole standpoint. Like this is one of my favorite midsole foams that I've ever worn on the trail. Like it might be
High
like a
praise.
like on the hierarchy, we're looking like like Adidas Terex Light Strike Pro, Ultra Ego Pro with an Ego Max carrier. Like I think those might be my top 2 favorite trail foams. Now, would I wrap that up in a slightly different package? Probably. But was it absolutely surprising at how fun it was to run in? Yes, it shocked me. And I absolutely enjoyed like every single run I did in this shoe. Um, I have a couple like let's talk about like durability prediction a little bit. Um, I I was texting our buddy Jimmy Elam.
Okay.
Um, he just ticked over 300 miles in the mountains on his pair of Mont Blanc Carbons. He said the midsole foam like feels almost identical to day one. So that's pretty cool. I've got 100 miles on mine, and I think it feels better than the first run. And I took them for a 17-mile long run straight out the box. Like I risked the Achilles for everything. Um,
That's how much you care.
yeah, but and like I was just shocked at the level of comfort that the shoe delivered. Um, I think for me, the
What's gonna
pro
go
the
first?
it's actually going to be the outsole. Surprisingly, and it's because this outsole is so flat and, like, hard angled on every side that, like, I my foot does not come down, like, the center of my heel first and just, like, rock forward, like, I'm not a peg-legged pirate, like, I strike down on a little bit of the edge because I have hips and, like, hip angles and science and such. Like, come on, guys. So like I am just shredding the outside of this. And like once I bevel it out a little bit,
I'm
yeah,
getting that exact same type of wear.
yeah.
Exact same.
So like I'm pretty sure though that once I like scuff this heel out enough, I will it'll slow down like the amount that I'm wearing it, but it's just kind of annoying that I have to get to that first where like I'm scuffing the sharp edge. I had the same exact problem with the Nike Ultra Fly. their heel, very sharp Vibram rubber, and I just went through the edge lugs, like just on the very edge in like 150 miles. But then the rest of the outsole totally fine. That's what I'm seeing with this. Um,
Agree.
I'm curious about the upper durability. I mean, I've got no reason to think that this won't last a long time, but like it's two things, red flags for me. One, it's a nice lightweight material. So it's like, will we destroy it? And two, it's an ultra.
You know those memes where like the guy who has the massive beard shaves and like his face is 20 years old, but the rest of his body's like 60?
Yeah.
That's what this shoe is shaping up to be for me. Like everything you described about like those like edge outsole lugs are starting to fade super quick, but like the upper looks like it's still, 20 miles in for me.
Yeah. And like that's surprising. I thought we were gonna both be saying like, yeah, I think I'm gonna blow something out on the upper because that's what happens with ultras. But I don't think I don't think that's the case. I think this is going to be a pretty durable shoe. But is it $260 durable? Like, let's talk about the value. So we talked about everything that you get in the shoe, and it's super fun. It's amazing. This new foam is great. Carbon plate, technology, up the hoo-ha. $260 though. What do you think?
I mean, we're coming off a review of the Solomon Genesis that we modified with the word budget because it went a long way for not a lot of money. This is $110 more than that shoe, which is can do it all, at least in my world. Yeah, I think that like, and I'm going to steal your thunder because you said this offline. When it comes down after discount to about $200, it's perfect value.
Yeah, I can't recommend this shoe for $260. I think the only person that's really going to buy the shoe is like the ultimate ultra fan that has been waiting years for like that race shoe with the premium materials to come out because they need that zero drop racer. That you're paying a lot extra for that, and like I just can't recommend this shoe at 260. 180 to 200, I can recommend this all day because then it undercuts the Ultra Fly, the Terex Agravic Speed, the Saucony Endorphin Edge. That's $200. I think this shoe is better than that shoe in like pretty much every regard. Um, but for 260, 260, I can't do it. Maybe for some 260, they're like, whatever, I want to try a fun shoot because I think it's super fun.
It
I think
is.
you will get a lot of running out of it, but I don't believe that I'm going to get 700 quality mountain miles. If it truly lasted twice as long, sure, but I don't think it will. I think it could last like a little bit longer than average. And you're paying for I'm all for paying for fun shoes, but even I have my limits.
All right, I've got two comments and then I have a question for you and I guess for the audience as well. First comment, this is an aesthetically pleasing shoe. I think Ultra legitimately built a beautiful shoe. I don't always say that about Ultra shoes. I also didn't say that about any Hoka shoes pre like 2018. But this, I think, is an aesthetic turning point for the brand. I really enjoyed running in this shoe.
I agree, but that actually also reminds me of one thing, like perhaps like a legit disclaimer. This shoe is much brighter in person than any picture of it you will see online,
Yes.
and that has been the most common review. Like looking at Ultra's site, like this shoe has been knocked on the reviews, which like I also just think most websites should get rid of shoe reviews because they're all 3 stars. That's a whole separate episode rant. But anyways, the, both on like Running Warehouse and Ultra site, the shoe comes off as like a more muted red, whereas it's like a vibrant, like neon red coral type color. So like just be prepared that this shoe is very bright, but it's a race shoe. It's a race car. Those are supposed to be bright. They're supposed to stand out. It looks fast. And for that reason, like I totally agree with you. Like I like the ultra lettering that has like the lines across it. Like I think it's pretty cool. I think the white second half is pretty sweet. Um, Question for you, Finn. Would you race in this shoe?
Well, I was just going to say, I do think that this is a performance oriented shoe. And I mean, I have some biased views. I thought that the 1.5 Duo was a shoe built for racing as well, but realistically speaking, when was the last time Ultra built a shoe for racing? I don't know. It's been kind of a long time, in my opinion.
Oh, there's never been an Ultra shoe that I would ever even consider racing in.
Yeah. Now I would consider racing. I legitimately would consider racing in this shoe. I would race in
I
it.
I
I would race
agree.
in it.
I agree. And that's like, again, with my lack of sound machine, that's my like lukewarm take of the episode, is that I think I would race in this Ultra. Um, but I would only do a fairly vert heavy long race, like 100 kilometers or longer, with a good amount of hiking and a good amount of descending at a pretty slow pace, because I where I thrived in this shoe was like the all day outing type efforts with minimal flat running. I did some flat running, and the zero drop doesn't bug me, but I also don't feel like the most efficient version of myself when I'm in zero drop on flat ground. I can run no problem in zero drop on flat ground. I'm not going to get like I love your boy Scott Jurek Instagram page, but like I switch around between zero drop all the way up to 10 millimeter drop shoes all the time. It's fine. Like it's a sham. Uh, but I will say I don't feel like the most efficient version of myself when I'm running flat in a zero drop shoe. So I would seriously consider this for any trail like 100 miler. I would consider this shoe because I really liked it. Like, like Jeff Browning's worn this for like a gazillion hard rocks.
And I think the Moab 240.
Yeah. He did every race last year in the shoe. Tara Dower just ripped what was that 100? Old
Umstead.
Umstead. She just crushed Umstead in this shoe, Mont Blanc Carbon. So
Yeah.
it's like we're starting to see some like high performance results in this shoe. Correlation, causation, I don't know.
It's just so funny because to me, from its origins, and this is debatable, but I have always made the association with Ultra as a through hiking shoe first and foremost. Like I would always see people in the Lone Peaks out on trail back in the day, and the outsole durability of the shoe makes me concerned. But I guess one question I have for you is like, if you were to like how realistic and like convenient is going to like a local outfitter to resole a shoe? If that's the biggest issue with something like a Mont Blanc for 260, do you think it's out of the question just to go and like resole it?
I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of it's a weird ask. Because like at what point are you really going to resole the shoe? Like, so like say you put 500 miles on the shoe and then you go resole it and they're like, okay, that'll be $80. Once you resole it, how many more miles are you really going to get out of the shoe? Like not 500 more. Like that's extremely doubtful. Like I don't think this is the shoe that gets resold. I think this is the shoe that you just run on it until the lugs are completely flat. Um, and it's also it's kind of hard. That's a question for the audience. Has anyone ever gone to like a Vibram dealer at a
Yeah.
shoe cobbler and actually successfully gotten a shoe resold? Because um, I've
Drop it in the comments.
like one of my athletes that I coach who will remain unnamed. We were trying to make a Vibram outsold like super race shoe, and he took it to his local cobbler, and the cobbler was like, "Oh, yeah, the rubber that you want for this, like the light base." He's like, "I can't get it." He's like, "I could put like the like really thick trekking outsole rubber on it, but we'd add like a half pound each shoe, and it would cost $100." So it's like the idea is there, but the execution is tough. And maybe it's less of a problem outside of the U.S. But yeah, all in all, really fun shoe. But we got to wait for the
Very
price
fun.
to come. We got to wait for the price to come down a little bit. You gonna keep running in it?
I'm
You gonna
gonna
keep it?
so I have a whole like side closet of shoes that we reviewed sometimes out of season that I want to try in season, like a lot like the La Sportiva Jackal I've just kept back here because I really want to use it again in the summer. I think I will. I think I'll keep it for like I might do like a 1 or 2 summer long runs in it just out of curiosity.
I kind of like having a zero drop shoe in the rotation to like tighten up my running economy a little bit, because it does force me to land a little bit prettier. And I think that's a good thing to remember every once in a while. Plus, I just really like how comfortable the shoe was for those all day things. But yeah, if the $260 price tag doesn't deter you and you want to try these shoes out, feel free to use the link below in the show notes to get the Ultra Mont Blanc Carbon from our friends over at Running Warehouse. Your purchase helps allow us to continue to, do reviews like this and tell you the real truths about what we really think of some of these shoes. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you in the next review.